Rob, here we are only a few days now away from a first ever European final. Are we excited? You know, what's the mood?
Yeah, I think we are excited. We're excited, but we're also kind of realistic about what we're going to have to go through to win the game. Atmosphere around the changing rooms is fantastic, and not in a silly way. It's fantastic in a genuine energy way. You know, the boys are chucking around some big weights in the gym this morning. You know, there's a real energy flowing around, but also an understanding that the hard work needs to go on day by day. You know, it isn't about sitting down and waiting for the game to come. There's stuff we've got to get right today, stuff we've got to do well. I think we'll train very, very well today. We trained very well yesterday. And then obviously Thursday's an important day. Tomorrow's an important day for the lads to kind of just recoup that energy, but also start to build that emotional kind of wave that we'll need to get surfing on the weekend. And that feels like it's coming. You know, we've got a couple of important meetings today. We've got a couple of important sessions out in the field, but we feel in a good place. And the most important thing is that we do ourselves justice on the weekend. You know, I'm not a big believer in it's a game we should just be taking part in and we just be pleased with there, and it's like, oh, we can give it a shot and all this type of stuff. We're way beyond that now. You know, we're way beyond that. We'll be hugely disappointed if we lose. I don't mind saying that. I'll say that now, because we've prepared very well and we've given an awful lot to this campaign. So we're going to give it an awful lot at the weekend.
When did you see a change in the psyche of yourselves, your players, everyone at the club, in terms of you're not happy to... We go back to the Premiership final a few years ago where we were delighted to get there that first time. Now the whole psyche's different. I think
it takes the experience of the pain, and it takes the experience of the joy as well, which we had the year after, and obviously the experience of how you manage your way there. So the Heineken Cup was as a perfect example. You know, it's probably been just a little bit out of our reach, not through any other reason other than maybe that the two campaigns on their own have been challenging. You know, you need to remember you can't just write off one competition to go for the other. And I think what you're probably seeing is in the last couple of years, particularly, our squad strength and our squad quality and our squad understanding and experience has just been enough to be able to make sure that the two competitions can align and we can win games in both competitions and keep moving forward. And I think that's the important thing, because once you become under pressure in the Premiership, it becomes very difficult then to focus wholly on Europe, and same the other way around. If you become under pressure on one, you move your way into the other. People see it all the time. And so it's that ability to be able to focus on two things and get what you need out of the initial part of any competition that's really important. So starting well in the Premiership is very important. Starting well in your first two rounds in Europe is very important. And once you get those two things under your belt, you start to create a scenario where you can start to really have a feeling that as other teams might start to change their planning or their processes, you can start to really drive yours. And that's what we've seen this year. We've seen an ability to deal with both things and deal with them well. And we've seen an ability within the squad to adapt to things as we've gone along. And particularly, you know, there's been a huge challenge around the COVID-19 scenario. And that adaptability and that desire to work hard through that and take the best out of it that we could has been fantastic by the players and staff. And I think what you're seeing now is you're just seeing a maturing playing group who understand what needs to be done. You don't forget you're also seeing a maturing coaching group, because we're learning all the time. You know, I have to say that, you know, year by year I get more and more impressed with Ali and Rob and Ricky. Jules is on board now, Hayden Thomas. You know, more and more impressed with our conditioning team and our medical team. You know, they drive some really high standards, and we're probably seeing the fruition of the high standards that like our medical team and our conditioners drive, you know, day by day. You know, you don't get the benefit of that overnight, and you get the benefit of it over a month or 2 months or 3 months, but the huge benefits come over a number of seasons, and you're seeing those things more and more all the time now.
Obviously, fate has it that we go back to Bristol again, 10 years on from that eventful night at the Championship. What about this weekend? Is it nice that you're only just up the road? There's not the hassle of maybe going somewhere a bit different?
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, it's like anything, isn't it? What you may be seeing is we're probably for the first time in Europe, reaping the rewards of topping a pool, because we've never managed to do that before. And obviously what you've seen is that's helped us along the way. So the effort we put in through that whole pool stage to try and really drive what we wanted out of it, we've seen the benefit as we've gone along, and we've managed to take advantage of that benefit. The quarter-final was here. You know, the semi-final ended up being here because we ended up being the higher seeds. the finals end up in England because we've ended up being the highest qualifying seeds. We could very easily have been going to Ireland. We would have been going to Ireland if Leinster had stayed in, wouldn't we? That's what we would be doing in reality. We've stayed in and we've fought through our games and as top seeds, so that's ended up under the new regs of game coming to England. We've got to take that as a benefit. But it's like anything, it will only be a benefit if we pour it all out on the field for 80 minutes. We can't turn up and just because the game's in England win. That's completely doesn't work, does it? We've got to turn up and we've got to be the better team over 80 minutes if we want to have any expectation of winning.
Rob, you talked for weeks about the way the boys came back from restart and how it dictated how you could attack this second half of the season. Now you're seeing that fruit, and they seem to be getting better week by week now as we head into what I call the real business end.
Yeah, well, I think what the guys have really done really well is they came back. They worked really well on their own and with some guidance from as I say, from the medical and conditioning team through that period with their programs and what they needed to get done. They've obviously done that really well. We then had a period of just pure stage 1 training, which is very much weights and running and not much else. They worked exceptionally hard at that. I was here. I was the only member of coach staff here because we weren't allowed to coach, but just watching them, the sheer effort they put in was fantastic. And that continued into stage 2, and they've really bought into everything we've asked them to do. They've even used games when the games have been won or even when games have been lost to actually drive on what they can prepare for physically. And we've seen some fantastic examples of that in games this year where people watching from the outside might just be watching and seeing the game of rugby and seeing tries or seeing kick chases or seeing the result without actually really seeing the performance and what the performances are about and what we were driving in them. And the guys have done that fantastically well, and that's just slowly let us build a scenario where we are now, where we feel pretty good about what we can do over 80 minutes.
And that conditioning obviously has led to a fully fit squad going into a big final.
Well, like anybody else, we've got bumps and bruises and tweaks and niggles and stuff, but on the whole, we're selected from a very strong group of players. Racing will be selected from a very strong group of players, probably for slightly different reasons. They haven't had the games, and so they haven't picked up the niggles and the bits and pieces. So it's going to be the challenge of the 2 preparation periods, isn't it? We've prepared by playing, really, in the last couple of weeks, and racing are prepared by having like an isolated camp, and it's those in themselves, the benefit of one over the other. They're going to be very interesting things to see at the weekend. And
what of the threat of Racing? What are you expecting?
I'm expecting a real physical, really difficult contest, but I think if you're not expecting that, why do you even bother trying to get to a Heineken Cup Final? And they've got individual threats, and I don't need to talk about guys like Finn Russell and McIntyre in centre. That people know about those. They've got a big pack of forwards. I thought the game with their shadow first team at the weekend against Toulouse looked a good game of rugby. And you start to think, if their shadow team can perform like that, what can their frontline guys do? So there's an element of us not trying to prepare to stop everything, but also having an understanding of how they want to play, a basic but thorough understanding of how they want to play, but a real deep understanding of how we want to play and what we need to do to try and win the game. We did that really, really well against Toulouse, and we've got to use that as a semi-blueprint to how we play against Racing, because the blueprint against Toulouse in a lot of ways was a similar blueprint against Bath, and it'll have to be a similar blueprint in a lot of ways against Wasps in a couple of weeks' time. So it doesn't need to massively change against Racing, but we do have to get a few little tweaks in there to make sure we're just that bit more tuned into Racing.
Behind the cool exterior there that we're seeing, this is a huge game. What's it meaning to you? The journey you've been on from a young colt at this club right through to now, this is huge, I'd imagine.
Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, if someone had said to me, 15, 20 years ago, one day you'll be sitting there waiting to coach Exeter and they'll be playing a few games into the Heineken Cup Final, and we're going, well, yeah, maybe, but that seems like a long way off. But look, we're in a state-of-the-art stadium building here, built to create and help build and sustain a Premiership and a Heineken Cup winning side. We didn't have this 20 years ago. There's a hotel being built down now that will be there in a year's time. We haven't got that now, and it'll be there in a year's time. We've got a Desso pitch out there. We've got a Desso training pitch at the top. We've got a state-of-the-art gym downstairs. Just behind you, there's a state-of-the-art sports lab. We didn't have those things. They would have all felt like dreams. The reality is we're here because we deserve to be here, and we've taken the steps, and a lot of people have done a lot of hard work to get us here. Far beyond me, loads of different groups of players, beyond this group of players, loads of different groups of people beyond the group of people here now. You know, there's been a lot of steps taken, and it's not a dream. It's not a dream. It's a reality. We're there. Now we need to go and take it with two hands.
Final one from me, Rob. Obviously, one of your teammates, former teammates, passed away in the last 24, 48 hours. Ian Stewart. Just sum up a little bit about his character and what an influence he was around you, and what a teammate.
Amazing guy, and a guy you still used to see very regularly around the club until very recently. You know, people need to remember, you know, the journey to where we are now didn't start a year ago or 2 years ago or even 10 years ago. You know, I played with Ian when we were in the 4th division, you know, and he was part of the team that helped us get promoted out of the 4th division. He was part of the team that helped us get promoted out of the 3rd division. You know, he played in that game at Reading that got us promoted out of the 3rd division into the Championship. He was involved in the Championship, you know, and he was a great player, and everyone who played with him will know he was a very good player. Probably, like quite a few guys who played at Exeter, if he'd really, you know, had opportunities to maybe live in a different part of the world or go somewhere else, but could probably play frontline rugby. Did used to scare everybody. He used to scare me when I was captain of the team, and that's why he had a nickname Danger. You know, the times when he could be as dangerous for us as he could for the opposition. You know, that there's a truth to that. But on the whole, you know, you always used to love playing with him. Great guy in the squad. Great guy socially as well. And certainly, you know, I know looking at what's the chat's going on between all the ex-players who knew him, you can tell by the kind of love there is for him how much he'll be missed.